Dalit means those who are oppressed, those who are divided, those who have been historically exploited, and mostly those who have been treated as untouchables based on religious text. Hello students, today we will be discussing Dalit perspective of Indian national movement that is defined in your syllabus. There are different perspectives like British imperial perspective, then liberal perspective, then cultural nationalist perspective, then socialist perspective, then Marxist perspective, then radical humanist perspective of M.N. Roy, and Dalit perspective of Indian national movement. Means how Dalit thinkers or those who advocated the rights of the depressed classes, untouchables, how they viewed national movement. And any perspective will have group of thinkers, not only one thinker. So Dalit perspective, as the name suggests, is having the root word Dalit. Dalit means those who are oppressed, those who are divided, those who have been historically exploited, and mostly those who have been treated as untouchables based on religious text, Manusmriti. So, Dalit perspective starts with modernization of India, that socio-religious reforms first in 19th century. But that socio-religious reforms focused mainly on social evils like sati abolition and widow remarriage, and it did not dwell into the question of depressed classes or untouchables. So the lead was taken by Jyotiba Phule, who wrote the book Gulamgiri. So according to Jyotiba Phule, there was nothing like nation as far as India was concerned. And Jyotiba Phule in Maharashtra region also blamed Peshwa rule as Brahmins rule, which was exploitative, which was inhuman, which was cruel, where the untouchable caste were treated even worse than animals. Even later Ambedkar will say that higher caste Hindus can worship cow dung, but they don't touch their fellow human being. So, as far as Jyotiba Phule is concerned, he believed that India was not a nation. Why India was not a nation? Because for nation, three prerequisite conditions are required: liberty, equality, and fraternity. And caste system, which is based on hierarchy, which is based on highness and lowness, where Brahmins and Dalits can never be equal, and the higher and lower caste cannot have fraternity. So caste system was totally against liberty, equality to be more focused, and fraternity. So as far as caste system continues, there cannot be equality and fraternity, and this is the reason why there cannot be any nation. So Dalit perspective believe that India was a geographical expression, it was not a nation, and Peshwa rule was Brahmins rule, it was oppressive rule, it was continuation of the historical oppression of Dalits. So Jyotiba Phule and other Dalit leaders favored affirmative action from British side, and they consistently demanded separate electorate for depressed classes also, affirmative action for depressed classes also, because for thousands of years they were denied education, and naturally education was linked with the socio-economic status. So first, Jyotiba Phule blamed Peshwa rule because in third Anglo-Maratha war also Mahar caste many people of Mahar caste fought on behalf of East India Company to defeat Peshwas, and Peshwas rule ended in 1818 by third Anglo-Maratha war. So the Jyotiba Phule, Savitri Phule, they more emphasized on education of Dalits to uplift their conditions. And before B.R. Ambedkar, there are so many Dalit leaders. Many of them favored temple entry, many of them favored accommodation and the mainstream acceptance, and Ambedkar was different from them. Ambedkar wanted concrete representation of Dalits in all branches of administration. So Ambedkar described Indian National Congress as party of Brahmins, party of upper caste Hindus, and upper caste Hindus in general and Brahmins in particular. Upper caste Hindus in general and Brahmins in particular, and Dalits had no say in it. Ambedkar also claimed that had Tilak born in an untouchable family, he would have said that right against untouchability was my birthright, not Swaraj was my birthright. So Ambedkar was critical of Congress and its various leaders, including that of Tilak, for neglecting Dalits, for favoring upper caste Hindus in general. Brahmins were dominating Congress, and in the first phase of the national movement, moderate nationalism or radical nationalism, there was no social agenda. It was part of a strategy to keep social agenda off so that focus can be more on political agenda, reforms, greater representation to Indians. Because had the social agenda being put forth, Britishers would have played divide and rule card. So Ambedkar demanded fair treatment with Dalits. In 1927, he started Mahad Satyagraha because Dalits were denied access to wells and ponds to take fresh or clean water. They were forced to eat the meat of dead animals, deal with the dead skin of the dead animals. So that was quite inhuman and cruel according to Ambedkar. And Ambedkar participated in all three round table conferences, 1930, 1931, 1932. And he consistently demanded for separate electorate for Dalits, as it was given to Muslims by Morley Minto reforms 1909. It was extended to Anglo-Indians, Sikhs and Christians by Montego Chelmsford reforms 1919. So why Dalits were denied that? Because Dalits were no more needy, they were untouchable, they were treated in an inhuman manner. In the second round table conference, he had verbal quarrel with Gandhi. When Gandhi opposed most of the community's demands, then Ambedkar rebutted Gandhi that you have everything to oppose but nothing to propose. If you don't agree with my proposal, you give your proposal, I will agree. But Gandhi was mum. So Ambedkar rebutted that I could never think that such an ill-equipped person would be sent to decide the destiny of India. So Ambedkar was successful in convincing British Prime Minister MacDonald for MacDonald Communal Award 1932, in which 71 seats in provincial legislature was to be reserved come separate electorate. Means separate electorate provision was there for depressed classes. Although through Pune Pact, this number of seats was increased to 148. Pune Pact was between Gandhi and Ambedkar in provincial legislature, but this was reservation. So Ambedkar accepted reservation instead of separate electorate, and government accepted that. After in 1930, non-cooperation movement of 1920 was also not supported by Ambedkar. He opposed even civil disobedience movement 1930 onwards, because Ambedkar was lawyer and he favored constitutional agitation instead of breaking of the law. He also blamed Gandhi for misusing the saint-like image, and people have great faith on saints. One of the unique thing regarding Ambedkar that he was not only favoring social reforms and being champion of social justice, and he favored annihilation of caste, that is ending of caste, because a caste system is iniquitous, where there is higher hierarchy, where there is ascending order of reverence and descending order of contempt. This must break to form compassionate society. So he said that I will blast Manusmriti by dynamite, because that religious text justified the caste rigidity, caste evil, caste inequality. And this is the reason why he strongly believed that unless the religion is being addressed, social evil cannot be addressed. So he favored annihilation of caste, while Gandhi's approach was to reform highness and lowness within existing caste system. Gandhi in fact supported Varnashram system. He favored that evils of caste system should be addressed rather than dismantling caste structure. But the strong Ambedkar believed that without this dismantling caste structure, the evils of caste system cannot be addressed, because Ambedkar believed that caste was authoritative allocation of inequalities, and law was the greatest disinfectant against this evil, not breaking of law or salt satyagraha. So Ambedkar opposed civil disobedience movement. Ambedkar also believed that caste system was not based on division of laborers. It led to division of laborers. So the claim that caste system originally started on scientific basis of division of labor and specialization of labor, and Gandhi claimed that if one follow parental occupation based on caste, he will be doing his work with more specialization and contributing more for society and getting more for himself. That claim of Gandhi was rejected by Ambedkar. He favored annihilation of caste, dismantling of the caste, because Ambedkar believed that caste structure was the base for all kinds of discriminations in the society. So unless that evil base is being dismantled, the inequalities can never be addressed. So this was in 1930s, and Ambedkar was successful in getting depressed classes. Gandhi started a journal Harijan, but at the same time Ambedkar was always against it. Ambedkar formed various organizations, like in 1937 he formed Labour Party, 1942 he formed All India Scheduled Caste Federation, then after independence he formed Republican Party, and he also opposed Quit India movement, because he believed that Quit India movement will lead to power transfer from British elites to Indian elites, and British elites were not caste biased, but Indian elites are highly caste biased, and he blamed bureaucracy for sharing that caste biasness. Rural areas were dense of ignorance, and rural areas had more rigidity and practiced more untouchability and in an oppressive manner, which was hurting Dalits. So Ambedkar believed that social reforms must precede political independence, because even if there is political independence, there will be power transfer from British elites to Indian elites. And quite surprisingly, Ambedkar supported two-nation theory of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He believed that both communities would be relieved from fear of mutual subjugation. So quite surprisingly, he supported two-nation theory. Most of the non-Congress parties, including Muslim League, which was the originator of it, supported two-nation theory. That was also quite surprising. Ambedkar also opposed Quit India movement started by Gandhi, and when Cripps Mission offered ministerial berth to Indians, Congress rejected, but Ambedkar accepted. So 1942 to 1946, Ambedkar was the member of the Executive Council of Viceroy as a Labour Party minister, or as he championed the cause of labourers, as he always found synergy between labourers of England and Dalits of India. So he was member of Executive Council of the Viceroy as a Labour member for time period 1942 to 1946. So Ambedkar was accommodated later in Constituent Assembly as chairman of drafting committee. He was also accommodated in Nehru government as a law minister. So he played very important role in framing of constitution, be it Article 15 to that no disabilities to be attached with citizens in using public places, public restaurant or public places, public wells, ponds and so on. So that was also 17, right against untouchability. He focused a lot on equality, social justice, and he also favored affirmative action. This is the reason why Article 16(4), which provided reservation to backward sections including SC, ST in government jobs, and later 15(4) was added by First Amendment 1951. That is different thing. But Ambedkar also insisted on Article 46. Ambedkar also insisted and got whole part of the Constitution, that part 16 of the Constitution, Article 330 to Article 342, that is meant for upliftment of SCs, STs, later OBCs and other weaker sections of the society. So Ambedkar was also favoring reservation to SCs and STs. This is the reason why 330 for Lok Sabha, 332 for in Vidhan Sabha, the reservation for SCs and STs were provided. So after independence and before general election, on the issue of Hindu Code Bill, he left Nehru ministry and he formed Republican Party and contested election unsuccessfully. And on the last leg of his life in 1956, he, along with his large number of followers, converted to Buddhism, because he publicly said that I was born as untouchable, but I don't want to die as untouchable. So Ambedkar's contribution for social justice is immense. He was the biggest champion of social justice in India, and his views regarding national movement, regarding British, regarding Gandhi, regarding Congress, regarding independence, regarding social reforms, regarding political independence and regarding different phases of the national movement are clear. But in Dalit perspective, it's not Jyotiba Phule and Ambedkar only. The South Indian leader E.V. Ramasamy Naicker Periyar, he also started self-respect movement, which is also called anti-Brahmin movement. He opposed Hindi, he opposed dominance of North Indians. He believed that we are the aboriginals of this country. Aryans who are fair-skinned came from outside and we were pushed to South India. He supported Dravidian culture and Tamil language instead of adopting Hindi or Brahminical culture of North India. So unlike Ambedkar, Ambedkar did not was atheist. Of course, he converted to Buddhism and he considered Buddha as a god. But E.V. Ramasamy Naicker favored atheism because he believed that if we accept the existence of God, then there will be priesthood and the Brahmins would be main beneficiary of that, because whatever we donate on the name of God is not taken by the God, it goes to Brahmins. So E.V. Ramasamy Naicker Periyar started a self-respect movement. He also played a very important role in upliftment of untouchables, and because of that, based on a self-respect movement, there was Justice Party government in Madras Presidency for the period 1920 to 1937, and it was due to this movement that Dravid Kadagam was formed after independence, that later became Dravid Munnetra Kadagam, then in 1972 AIDMK, then subsequently other Dravidian parties like MDMK and others. So all Dravidian parties are those who are against North Indian Brahminical culture. They favor atheism, they favor Tamil language, they oppose imposition of Hindi, and they are against also caste rigidity. So E.V. Ramasamy Naicker also played very important role. In Dalit perspective, there are other leaders also, like Narayan Guru. Narayan Guru in Kerala region formed SNDP, that is Sri Narayan Dharam Paripalan, and Ejahwa community, the community to which he belonged to. Ejahwa community was considered down upon, and they are looked up down upon. So he had the redemptive social movement, personal transformation of Ejahwa community at the personal level, that to promote cleanliness, to abandon non-vegetarian food, to maintain hygiene, to become compatible in the society. So that is called redemptive social movement, that is focusing more on personal transformation, because Ejahwa community was considered down because they were not maintaining cleanliness, they were not maintaining hygiene, they were dealing with the dead animals, they were having alcoholism, they were using non-vegetarian food. So all these things were to be done away with. So he was also not atheist, because SNDP, that is Sri Narayan Dharam Paripalan, that he formed in 1903. So that also is part of Dalit perspective. Then there are other thinkers like K. Kelappan in Kerala region, also started temple satyagraha in 1924. Later he also participated in civil disobedience movement with march from Cochin to Poyanur. So there are so many thinkers within the Dalit perspective, and all these were favoring upliftment of Dalits in a different way.